In the heart of a desolate dusk, a train screeched into the weathered station of Dusthaven, its steam hissing like a beast in pain. Passengers spilled onto the platform in twos and threes, clutching battered suitcases, hailing cabs, or searching the crowd for familiar faces. But one woman stood apart, solitary as a shadow. She wore a threadbare shawl, pulled tight around her shoulders, her boots too large for her delicate feet. Her dress, torn at the hem and smudged with soot, hung loosely on her frame. Chestnut hair stuck to her sweat-dampened cheeks, and a dark bruise bloomed along her jaw, half concealed by her scarf. The station master leaned out from his booth. "Name?" he asked, his tone more routine than cruel. She blinked, slow and deliberate. "I don't have one," she said after a pause, her voice low, cracked like parched earth. He frowned. "Everyone's got a name, miss." "Not anymore." He opened his mouth to argue but stopped. Something in her eyes, wild, haunted, sensed him. With a half-hearted shrug, he handed her a slip of paper and turned to the next passenger. She drifted through Dusthaven's town square, clutching a small cloth bag to her chest, as if it held her last tether to life. Children stared. A merchant muttered about loose women. Under his breath. At the boarding house, the owner took one look at her disheveled state and slammed the door. By sundown, she found a dry patch behind the general store, shielded from the wind. She curled up, her bag as a pillow, under a sky where stars blinked like indifferent gods. Sleep eluded her. The cold gnawed at her bones, and the slurred voices of drunken men in the alley kept her on edge. Juan stumbled close, leering. "Pretty one," he slurred. "Bet she'd be grateful for company." Another laughed. Footsteps drew nearer. Her hand slipped to the shard of glass hidden in her boot. But then chains fell. A shadow loomed at the alley's edge. Broad shoulders, heavy boots, a long coat brushing the ground. The man said nothing, but the drunks sobered instantly. One whispered, "Caleb," and they scattered like roaches. She peered through the cracks of her makeshift shelter. The man, Caleb Morrow, stood motionless, his gaze fixed on her. Even in the dark she felt its weight. He didn't approach, didn't offer food or words, just watched. Then he was gone. By morning, Dusthaven buzzed with whispers. That woman, no name, no ring, probably a runaway, came from the east, where the fear was. Caleb looked at her. No, he wouldn't. He's not that kind of man. Maybe he saw something familiar. She wandered the town again, seeking work. The bakery turned her away. The tailor laughed in her face. No references, no surname, no chance. By dusk she returned to the alley, her body aching, her stomach clawing with hunger. She leaned against the wall, letting Solentars fall. A shadow fell over her. She looked up to see Caleb Morrow, his scarred face unreadable, his smoked gray eyes hard to hold. Without a word, he extended his hand. She stared at it, heart pounding. With no husband, no name, and nowhere to go, she took it. Caleb didn't lead her through town. He guided her around it, down an overgrown trail past a dry creek bed and into the rugged foothills, where the land grew silent and harsh. His horse plodded slowly, as if sensing the woman trailing behind hadn't eaten properly in days. Neither spoke. The only sounds were the wind rustling dry grass and the distant cries of hawks. She clung to the saddle horn, uncertain if she was being saved or claimed. The cabin, when they arrived, seemed to sprout from the mountain itself, low, weathered, half-draped in climbing vines. Smoke curled from the chimney. No welcome sign, no lantern greeted her. Caleb dismounted, tied the horse, and opened the door without a glance. He looked back once. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The cabin smelled of cedar and tobacco. A stone fireplace cast flickering light across wooden walls. 2 rooms, one with a narrow cot, the other with a sturdy bed. Caleb pointed to the cot and set a basin of water on the table. Bread and beans, still warm, waited for hers. She moved cautiously, unsure. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. He didn't answer, just turned and vanished into the other room. The next morning, she woke before dawn to the sound of an axe splitting wood. A blanket she didn't recall pulling over herself was tucked beneath her chin. Through the window, she saw Caleb, shirt damp with sweat, chopping logs with the focus of a man trying to outrun his ghosts. In town, the saloon hummed with gossip. He took her up there. "No one's been in that cabin since the fire. She's trouble. Mark my words." Caleb didn't care. He returned to Dusthaven only once, to the blacksmith. And when asked about the woman, he stared until the questions died. Back at the cabin, she cleaned in silence, scrubbed the table, mended a torn curtain. She owed him nothing, but work made the silence bearable. That night, as she sipped weak tea by the fire, Caleb spoke for the first time. "Eat, sleep, leave when you're strong." She studied his face, scarred, hollow, not cruel, but etched with loss. "I have nowhere to go," she said. He didn't reply, just stared into the flames, jaw tight. Outside, a storm rolled in, howling through the cabin's cracks. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't afraid. She didn't know his story, and he didn't ask for hers. But something unspoken settled between them, like the silence itself was listening. Frost dusted the mountains as days passed. Caleb rode out before dawn and returned at sundown, never explaining where he went. She lost track of time. 3 days, maybe 6. The cabin's rhythm was simple: silence, work, warmth. It was more than she'd had in months, but the silence grew heavy. One evening, she followed him quietly to the ridge, where he vanished each day. Hidden by scrub trees, she watched him kneel beside 2 wooden crosses, one small. He didn't pray or weep, just sat, head bowed, shoulders rigid. The wind tugged at his coat. She stepped on a twig. His head snapped around, eyes locking with hers. She froze. Caleb stood and walked toward her. Fierce species, but he didn't shout or grab her. "Don't follow me," he said. She nodded. "I'm sorry." That night, she packed her things: a few clothes, a half-eaten loaf, a sliver of soap. She shouldn't have come, shouldn't have stayed. Before dawn, she left, descending the mountain trail alone. The cold bit deeper than she remembered. Hunger weakened her legs. Her boots rubbed blisters raw. By midday, she collapsed near a dry riverbed, the sky darkening. Memories clawed at her. Her father's guiled voice, her fiancé's rough hands, the locked room, the slap, the silence that stalked her. No name, no husband, no destination, no strength. When she opened her eyes, the stars weren't out, but Caleb loomed above her. Without a word, he lifted her, carrying her back up the mountain. She was too weak to resist. At the cabin, he didn't place her on the cot. He carried her to the big room, to his bed, laid her down gently, and pulled a blanket over her. Then he left. She heard a door close softly, then another. Silence. Alone in his room, she curled beneath the quilt and wept. Not from fear, but from confusion, from something she couldn't name. She woke to the smell of eggs, impossible and disorienting. A plate sat on the table by the window. Bread, eggs, bacon still steaming. Caleb was gone. She ate, her stomach deciding for her. As she washed the plate, her eyes roamed his room. A shelf held 3 books, a worn Bible, and 2 with faded spines. A comb, a silver pocket watch stopped at 4:16. A pair of child's boots by the door, dusty but upright. In the wardrobe, among folded shirts, hung a pale blue dress with lace at the collar. Delicate buttons. Not hers, not recent. Tucked in the corner was a wooden toy horse, hand-carved, etched with the name Emma. Her fingers trembled as she set it back. When Caleb returned with firewood, she waited for him to mention the room, the breakfast, her escape. He said nothing. At dinner, she asked, was the blue dress hers? He stirred his stew, silent. Your wife. Still nothing. Finally, he spoke. They burned 5 winters ago. I was in town when it started. Couldn't get back fast enough. Doctors said too late. She swallowed. I'm sorry. He nodded once. I couldn't leave the room, she whispered. When I ran, I had nothing. He didn't ask for more. He didn't need to. That night, the wind howled again. She sat by the fire, knees to her chest. Caleb took the chair across from her. For the first time, he didn't retreat to his room. He stayed. As the fire crackled and shadows danced, the cabin's ghost seemed to question it. Not gone, just softer. Frost thickened as winter deepened. Caleb rode out each morning, returned each evening with wood, potatoes, dried apples. He never asked her past, never asked her name. She didn't offer it. One morning, her hands shook, the cold biting deeper. Her breath caught, and the room spun. She collapsed by the hearth. When she woke, Caleb knelt beside her, his coat smelling of pine and smoke. Without a word, he carried her to bed. For 3 days, she drifted through fever, cool cloths on her forehead, bitter herbs on her tongue, his strong arms steadying her through shivers. She saw fragments, his face close, eyes clouded with worry, his rough hand brushing hair from her brow, him dozing upright in a chair by her bed. He never left. When the fever broke, she woke beneath a heavier quilt, her hair braided. Caleb sat by the window, tired but present. You stayed, she whispered. He looked at her, calm. Of course I did. It wasn't affection or obligation. Something older, like instinct. That evening, she ate again. He set a bowl before her and sat across the table, a candle flickering between them. Thank you, she said. He didn't reply, but after a pause he asked, You got a name? She hesitated, then shook her head. Not anymore. He nodded. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just full. Outside, snow fell, spun as ash from a dead fire. She watched his hands as he cleaned his rifle, the scar on his knuckle, the careful way he whistled. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of what she might feel if she stayed. She grew stronger. Each morning, she rose before the fire died, swept the floor, fetched water, kneaded bread with numb fingers. Caleb never asked her to, but he never stopped her. A rhythm formed, stillness without silence, comfort without closeness. Until the day she opened the chest in the barn. She'd been searching for blankets, but the lid creaked open, and something drew her in. Inside was a faded photograph, creased at the edges, Caleb beside a red-haired woman, smiling softly. A little girl with a missing tooth and a crooked bow between them. She traced the girl's face. Beneath the photo lay a charred scrap of fabric, perhaps once part of a pale blue dress. At the bottom was a half-burned letter, edges crumbling, only fragments readable. Waited all night. She was coughing again. Please come home. Her breath caught. She closed the chest and sat in the straw, heart resetting. The past had teeth, and they were sharp. That night, she was silent at dinner. Caleb noticed. You find it? He asked. She looked up. He wasn't angry, just tired. I wasn't supposed to be gone that long, he said. They had smoke in their lungs by the time I got there. Doctor said too late. She blinked back tears. I'm sorry. I buried them behind the ridge, he continued, but I couldn't bury the sound. I still hear it when I sleep. I hear things too, she said, voice trembling. Slammed doors, my father's voice, my own name, before they took it from me. He stared at her, quiet. You didn't take me, she added. You saved me, even if you didn't mean to. The wind rattled the windows like it wanted in. Neither moved. But for the first time, Caleb looked at her like she belonged, like she had every right to be there. That night, as the fire burned low, she pulled a wrinkled paper from her bag. A birth record, her real name, the last thing she'd taken when she fled. She stared at it, then fed it to the flames. Snow melted slowly in Dusthaven. Spring neared, but the cold lingered. Gossip flowed like thawing rivers. She's still up there, living with him like a wife. Something's not right. No decent woman would stay with Caleb Morrow. Then came the man in the brown coat. Sheriff Amos Holt hadn't walked Dusthaven's streets in 2 years, not since Caleb broke his brother's jaw in a saloon fight no one mentioned. Now he returned, badge gleaming, a telegram from the capital in his pocket. It described a missing woman, daughter of a powerful judge, last seen on a westbound train, suspected runaway, possibly abducted. Holt recognized her from the sketch. He rode into the hills. She was hanging clothes in the morning light when the sui barked. She turned to see a man on horseback, sheriff's star on his chest. She froze. Caleb stepped from behind the barn, rifle slung across his back, eyes unreadable. Holt tipped his hat. Didn't expect to see you playing house, Morrow. You're not welcome here, Caleb said. Holt ignored him, addressing her. Miss, you all right? She didn't answer. Name's Sheriff Holt. Folks down east are looking for you. Said you were taken by force. I wasn't, she said. Then why no word? No telegram, no letter? I didn't want to be found. Holt laughed. That's not how the law works, sweetheart. You're somebody's daughter, somebody with power. Right now, you're missing property. She's not property, Caleb growled. You think the judge cares what you say? In one smooth motion, Caleb stepped between her and Holt. She's not going anywhere, he said, voice low and steady. Holt reached for his gun. Caleb didn't flinch. She stepped forward, voice sharp. If you take me, I'll scream. I'll say you hurt me. I'll say anything. I'd rather die in this cabin than go back. Holt narrowed his eyes. You're making a mistake. She met his gaze. I already made one when I let people decide my life for me. Silence. Then Holt turned his horse. You'll regret this, he muttered. They watched him ride away until he vanished. She touched Caleb's arm just once. He let her. Holt didn't take defeat lightly. 2 nights later, hooves shattered the quiet. Caleb was at the door, rifle in hand. She moved beside him, heart pounding. Outside, 3 men dismounted, Holt among them, lantern in one hand, pistol in the other. I gave you a chance, Morrow, he shouted. This time I'm not asking. Caleb stepped onto the porch, calm as ice. She's not yours, Holt growled. You're harboring stolen blood. She belongs to no one, Caleb said. Not even me. She grabbed the shotgun by the hearth. Her hands shook, but her mind was clear. The last time someone came to take her, she'd stayed silent. Not now. The first shot cracked like thunder. A deputy fell, clutching his leg. Gunfire erupted. Caleb moved with lethal precision, firing, reloading, shifting. Holt dove behind the water trough. The third man tried to flank the cabin but dropped, hit in the shoulder. Then silence. Smoke lingered. The porch rail was splintered. The dog whimpered under the stairs. Caleb stepped forward, boots crunching glass. Holt raised his hands. All right, all right. She stood behind Caleb, shotgun steady. Go, Caleb said. Holt hesitated. This isn't over. It is for you. Holt mounted his horse with a sneer and vanished into the trees. Inside, she dropped the shotgun, hands numb. Caleb turned to her. You okay? She nodded, unsure if it was true. I'll fix the door, he said. I'll make tea, she replied. Neither smiled, but something shifted. like a wound beginning to heal. That night, Caleb cleaned his wounds at the table while she sewed his torn sleeve. When her fingers brushed his arm, he didn't pull away. "You could have let me go," she whispered. "I didn't want to," he said. She looked up. "I didn't want to either." For the first time, he reached for her hand, not with possession or apology, but with teethed promise. The cabin healed slowly. Caleb rebuilt the porch rail with fresh cedar. She planted herbs beneath the kitchen window, basil, thyme, lavender safe from her bag. He brought her more seeds. Some days he spoke, a few words, fewer than most men used in an hour, but each carried weight. She learned his silence, what it meant when he studied the ski or lingered at the field's edge. He still visited the graves, always alone. She never followed again. One afternoon, he returned with a canvas-wrapped bundle. Inside was a carved sign, simple and rough. Home. Not Morrow's ranch, not the cabin, just home. She helped him hang it above the door. That evening, they ate by lamplight. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his knuckles. "I want to stay," she said. He looked up. "You already have." A shadow lingered in her heart. One final piece. Late one night, while Caleb slept by the fire, she stepped outside with an envelope. The last tide of her old world. At the ridge, where the wind carried voices, she held it over her lantern's flame until it burned. She didn't watch it turn to ash. She watched the stars. By spring, the hills bloomed with color. The dog trailed her everywhere, tail wagging. Caleb built a second chicken coop. She painted the bedroom window blue. One morning, she found new boots by the door. Small, worn in, perfect. A note inside read, "For the one who walks beside me." No signature. They fit perfectly. The creek sang louder. Birds returned to the ridge. Her lavender pushed through the soil, small but stubborn. One morning, kneeling in the garden, she heard Caleb's boots behind her. He sat on the step, watching her work, calm, no longer running from ghosts. "Do you ever wonder what they say about us down there?" she asked. He shrugged. "They don't know us." She smiled. "No, they don't." That evening, as the sun painted the hills gold, she wrote on parchment for the first time in months. Not a letter, not a confession, but a story. There was a woman with no husband, no name, no place to go. She was meant to vanish, to stay silent. But a man who said little and lost everything gave her space for her pain, not with flowers or promises, but with room to breathe, with stillness, with staying. She left it on the windowsill under a stone. The next day, it was gone. In its place, a note. "Stay as long as you want." Months later, a traveler passed through Dusthaven, sharing a tale at the saloon about a hilltop cabin where a feared man lived with a woman no one recalled. No gate, no name. Just two people who looked at each other like, oh, they'd risen from the grave. In a world quick to judge, label, and discard, she found a place where silence was peace, not punishment. Her name wasn't something to defend, but something she could choose anew. And maybe that's what we all seek. Not rescue, not revenge, but a quiet place to be seen, with one person who won't look away. If you had no name, no past, no promises left to chase, where would you go? Who would you hope to find waiting at the end of the road?